Work is finished. I'm coming back.
The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and right, and this was odd because it was the middle of the night. Slaaneshi was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had no business to be there after the day was done. It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. The sea was as wet could be, the sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because the warpstone was in the sky. No carrion birds were flying overhead, there were no carrion birds to fly. A bunch of nurglings came by, walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If all this life was cleared away, they said, oh, the diseases would be grand. In other words, hello everybody, and welcome to the Fluffenhammer. That's literacy.
Brilliant. I mean, an Alice in Wonderland reference right off. That's perfect. That's perfect. That just sets up the entire mood, doesn't it? Because it is a little bit like descending down the rabbit hole. Although, you know, the Fluffenhammer tends to have more of an American McGee's Alice feeling than the original book.
That's true, actually. That's true. I do really want to see a nurgling run around with a little stopwatch. It's like, oh, I'm late! I'm late!
I love the idea of an Alice in Wonderland themed demon army. Just generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the stuff you could do. The stuff you could do with that. You could have, like, the Changeling as the Mad Hatter.
Yeah, okay.
You know, or Kairos Fate Weaver, maybe. Maybe you could stick some little top hats on Kairos Fate Weaver's two heads.
I'm in.
That'd be ace, wouldn't it?
Not only that.
That'd be fabulous.
Top hats, the well-fitted suit. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can actually see. I can see in my mind a Lord of Change wearing a suit, and it actually looks really good.
Yeah.
He's got the frame for it. I mean, you'd struggle if you tried to fit a Great Unclean one into that. I don't think it'd work so well.
It depends. If you went for more like a mobster suit, I think it would suit the Great Unclean one.
Probably would. It's sort of like the Penguin style.
Yeah, little trilby and a monocle, yeah.
Although the Great Unclean one would have to be the Walrus, wouldn't it?
Yes, actually. Oh, that would have been a much better way of going at that.
Wouldn't it have to be the Walrus?
Yeah.
And of course, the Queen of Hearts would have to be a Bloodthirster. It'd have to be Scarbrand. Off with their heads, you know. Obviously.
Can you imagine it? Like, so it would be something along the lines of. I'm just quickly imagining now. So it would be. A bunch of disease, the Unclean One said, is chiefly what we need. Pepper and vinegar besides are very good indeed. And now if you're ready, little dears, we can begin to feed. But not on us, the people cried, turning a little blue. After such kindness, that would be a dismal thing to do. The night is fine, the Unclean One said. Do you admire the view?
It'd be superb. You could go to absolute town with it.
I am loving this for an idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be loads of fun. What would the White Rabbit be? Something that's fast, something that runs, something that's obsessed with time. Interesting. I don't know, but it's fun. It's a fun exercise to sit and... I mean, you could do this with lots of armies. I mean, you can do it with any army, technically. Go, look at something you enjoy, something that's got a real theme or flavour to it, and then rejig it based on that theme or on that aesthetic. I mean, I've seen in the past, I think it was a Chaos Space Marines army or a demon army based on the Call of Cthulhu, obviously. Lovecraft is obvious when it comes to the demons. He's kind of obvious, but still a really interesting one to go for. I've seen, there was one featured on Warhammer Community not too long ago, which was a Nurgle demon army, which was based on the old idea of the Carnival of Nurgle.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That was a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. I mean, it really was. That was a real thing back in the ROC days.
Yeah, it was,
that was actually very specifically described in Nurgle's background. When the demons of Nurgle spill into the mortal universe. They come as a carnival. They have things like there is actually a story in The Lost and the Damned about a great unclean one in a big like gypsy car.
Yes, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And he's sort of like trying to guide his lesser demons in the performance that's going to come of the night. It's really cool. It's really, really cool.
All I've got in my head now is just the music in the background,
yeah,
but a little bit more sort of decayed,
twisted and distorted.
Because it'd be being played by like a herd of sloppity bowel pipers.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you could make that really sinister. You could make that look like plague bearers with like smeared clown makeup and stuff like that, and balloons and things made out of like flesh, and yeah, it could be great fun. I mean, that's a really it's a standard and almost classic aesthetic for a demon army, for a Nurgle demon army. Anyway,
not only, George, would it be great fun, it would be great unclean fun. You see what I did there?
It would indeed.
Do you know what we haven't done?
What's
Introduce ourselves. Hello!
No. I don't think we have. No.
Digressions! Tangents.
Yeah, big digressions.
Hello, everybody. It's me.
Yes, hi there.
It's Adam, and this is George.
Yes, hello. Incidentally, hi. I think we kind of forgot you were out there.
Yeah.
To be honest, and that's kind of what I like about the Fluffenhammer. We do tend to forget that you lot are out there, and that's why it's so much fun.
There's two things I've discovered this week. The last couple of weeks, anyhow, which make me quite happy. One is that apparently listening to us is like listening to a conversation in a pub where you lose interest in the actual conversation that's happening in front of you and just start listening into the person that's a couple of tables down. So I quite like that.
Fabulous. I'll go for that. I mean that. I think that may be the ambition of the podcast. You know, to be the kind of podcast that people listen to, maybe while they're doing other things.
It's
like,
you know. we are the podcast that puts its arms out and says, "Come on, just come join us." I also discovered this week, and I'm not going to go into names because I don't think that would be fair, but we get listened to by a porn star, so that makes me that makes me quite happy.
That's fascinating.
Not a super famous one, but even so.
But a porn star, that's really fascinating. I think that may be unique in the history of Games Workshop style podcasts.
I have absolutely no idea, but
that may be unique. I think that's fabulous. Anyway,
so moving on.
Moving swiftly on.
A little bit of housework before we get going.
Okie dokie.
2 reasons. One,
sweepings.
Yes, sweep. Let's get the housework done. Get the flesh mops out. Get the tongue brushes. Let's get it all going. Just imagine the sound of a tongue brush. So last week me and George sat down and we recorded one of the best episodes I think we've ever recorded.
I think so.
It was 2.5 hours long. We got right into Adepticon, and then Zencastr decided to die a death. We have
after the fact, after we'd finished recording, of course.
Yeah. I actually sat to watch the waveforms as we were recording, and they were fine, they were good. The moment that we set everything up at the end, it just died. It knocked about 45 minutes off the recording time, and there was silence. That was not a good day. So what we've had to do going forward then is we've gone back to our original style of recording, so we're both recording on Audacity now. So if there's a bit of a change in the audio style, you have my apologies. I'm looking into different things to do to try and get us back up to that quality that we had with Zencastr, but we can't be using Zencastr. We've lost 3 shows to that now.
It's ruined far too much good work, I'm afraid.
It
really has. Alternative means, I think.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things to try out. I just need the time to sit down and play with them and see what I need to do.
Cool.
So that means that what we're going to be doing for the first half of the show is we're going to be going through Adepticon and just talking a little bit about the stuff that jumps out at us.
We've got to, because there is stuff. I mean, it's been this Adepticon was unique.
Yes, it really was.
Games Workshop, and I think a lot of it comes from Games Workshop itself. You know, they seem to have like. They didn't like directly sponsor Adepticon or anything like that, but they maintained a huge presence there. Like enormous, and they revealed more, I think, than they've ever revealed at an Adepticon.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I know one of the things that you're going to be aching to talk about.
He has a knife.
But me too, because it kind of slapped me round the face like that Monty Python sketch with the fish.
Literally, like being hit in the face with a ton of giant haddock and an octopus
Absolutely.
with a knife.
It's like dying under an avalanche of pilchards. It completely blindsided us. We knew they were coming.
But not like this.
Not like this. No. Not like this. Just the Ideneth Deepkin.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Where did that come from?
For years, people have said we want fishmen. Fishmen have been in Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Well, in the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, that's when it all begins. And people have wanted them. And when the rumours started to hit that there were going to be fishmen, we all thought, okay. Deep One style, fishmen. Yeah, fishmen.
They're going to be like the Sauhagen from D&D.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be like them, the children of that god that has the blub 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 name that I can't remember. Just fishmen.
I think you'll find it's Mr. Blub 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 Blub. He didn't go to nautical doctor school.
What I love about them in D&D is that's how they speak. The fishmen have a sort of that's how they actually speak.
That may be the worst noise you've ever made on this.
I know, right? I know. But that's what we all thought, yeah?
Yeah, it was.
Like fishmen. You know, sort of Dagon style Innsmouth bothering fishmen.
But
no,
what we got was something entirely different. Something a lot more mythical.
And also a little bit more redolent of the world that was.
Yes. Yeah.
Than we ever imagined. They're elves.
Yeah.
They're elves.
They're
a kind of elf. Sort of.
Not only are they elves, they are elf souls being reborn into brand new bodies by Tentacles, who has forged these new bodies for them. So they appear to have a spiritual's not the right word, but a link to the sea that is.
Yeah, it's elemental.
Yeah,
They're more like elementals, aren't they? You know, in the same way that the fire slayers or whatever they're called now.
Yeah.
Are fire elementals, essentially.
Yeah.
These guys are ocean elementals. This is what they are now. And the story, I mean, we don't really know the full story behind them, but from what we understand, they're the souls that were reborn from Slaaneshi's gullet, you know. Teclis, Tyrion, and Morathai captured Slaanesh and tore the elven souls from his belly.
As you do.
That had been devoured during the end times. And Tyrion took some, Morathai took some, Malarion took some, and Teclis took some. And they've all refashioned their quota of souls into their own new races, by all accounts. So another one of the suggestions, not necessarily from Adepticon, is that we're going to get like a shadow elf style force at some point, Malarion's children. But these guys, Teclis seems to have fashioned them into like water elementals or into ocean elementals. So they've got a slightly Piscean quality about them. Another fun thing, which I is the element that hooks me, and I quite frankly called it.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
He doesn't like them.
No, he doesn't.
Teclis. You know, I mean, there's this running joke in Games Workshop, and it is definitely a running joke now. They're conscious of it. Teclis never does anything right.
Nope, he is an utter failure at everything he does.
In every conceivable... Well, basically, the end times you can sort of trace back to him.
It's all his fault.
Making a grand error of judgment, essentially. Teclis makes mistakes. Always and often. And this is an entire army and race born out of one of his mistakes. He doesn't like them, by all accounts. He regards them as failures. We don't know why yet.
I can't wait for this battle tome.
I want to know why. I'm actually really interested. I mean, they are essentially derivatives of the High Elves, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, there was a time when you couldn't have paid me enough money to bother with the High Elves. They were... I mean, it's nothing innate to them. It's just they're not my kind of army, you know?
Well, the High Elves were always the last vestige of the token influence. Yeah. the going to the sea, the end of the long-lived race.
Yeah.
There was very little in there that grabbed me.
Me too. Like aesthetically or anything like that. The only thing I liked in them was the dragons.
Oh yeah, but the dragons were always just gorgeous.
Yeah, they had good dragons.
I mean, even the wood elves, what they became when they became more of a almost like the forest elementals themselves, when they became more ingrained into the nature of life and rebirth of nature, they became something else and became more interesting.
Absolutely. What they did with the wood elves, I mean, before they were just green elves.
Yes,
that was just basically it.
They were super Celtic.
Exactly, super Celtic. But what they've done with them now is tied them more closely to like old fairy tale stories. Yeah. They've got more of like the Hunt of the Earl King thing going on. Much more like dryad-like, much more druidic, much more tied to the wood itself.
Yes,
and I love that. It makes them interesting. It just makes them way more interesting than they were.
Yeah, totally. And then of course they became the Sylvaneth, and I actually really like the Sylvaneth.
I like the Sylvaneth too. I like the Sylvaneth too. And that's exactly what they've done here. It's exactly what they've done. They've made what were the High Elves, just aesthetically and in terms of their aspects and miniatures and their ethos, way more interesting. I could collect an army of these guys just on the miniatures alone.
Yeah, me too. The idea I've got at the moment is that what I probably want to do is get the monster kits, the beasts, and use them for scenarios. So you can have like an army versus a I was going to say a herd, but a herd wouldn't be the right word for these guys. A swarm or a shoal, yeah. A school of monsters where you're going to like hunt down and destroy all the monsters because they're attacking towns or something.
Well, it looks like you're going to have quite a lot to play with there because there are lots of monsters in this army. By the looks of it, there are these weird shark things that they ride, like cavalry.
Yeah. Seahorse.
There are seahorses, like giant seahorses. Octopi. There are this beautiful octopus miniature.
Stop. We need to talk about that because it's the most important miniature in the entire thing. Because there's something else I noticed about it since last we recorded. Unfortunately, no one will ever hear the moment where I realise that the octopus has a knife, which is one of the highlights of my life, I'm not going to lie, because I got giddy. I got giddy over the fact that this octopus has a knife.
It was fun to listen to.
Oh my god, the idea of this thing stabbing somebody makes me so happy. I don't know why. It's just, this octopus is like, look out, he's got a knife. No. And
I tell you what, there have been miniatures that have tried to capture things like tendrils and things, but they've been always very difficult to capture in miniature form.
Yeah.
Because they are so fine and so fluid, and it's very difficult to capture that feeling in plastic, you know?
Yes.
This one does it.
Yeah.
They've done it. They've really done it. It looks organic. It looks, painted up, it looks organic. It looks amazing.
But not only does it have a knife, it has something else, George.
What's it got?
It's got a little ink sac.
Oh, brilliant.
And this octopus is the best miniature that's ever been made, ever.
I mean, I don't know who the guy is that it's attached to, but he looks like some sort of...
I don't care. I just want the octopus.
A scribe or like a priestly kind of character, he looks like to me.
Well, it looks like the octopus carries around the ink for him, so he can write everything down.
Brilliant! Which is brilliant. So he's a bit like the Nurglings for the Tallyman in 40k.
Yeah, very much so.
He's got that feeling about him. Brilliant. I mean, the one that's really intriguing me at the moment is the guy with the water cape.
Yeah.
Who I think is Teclis.
I think you might be onto something there. He's either Teclis or he's an avatar of Teclis.
Like an avatar of Teclis, yeah. Because he looks like he can control water. And he has, like, Teclis' staff.
He does.
He looks like Teclis. I think it is Teclis. Which is fascinating, because if he's included in the army, then what's the dynamic there? Because he doesn't like them.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the Ideneth, so what's the thing there? Do they know he doesn't like them? Is he like trying to guide them like wayward children? Is he trying to guide them towards their destruction?
Yeah, that would be an interesting way to go. Is it that they force him to stay with him?
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah,
that would be what. Maybe he can't. Maybe he can't tear himself away from them now. Oh, that would be really cool. This is something they're doing in AOS a lot. I'm telling you, they are introducing these narrative and mythological tensions into the armies.
Yeah,
they did it with the Daughters of Cain.
Yes.
They did almost exactly the same thing, where you've got this thing between Morothai and the Daughters of Cain, whereby they are genuinely fanatical. They believe Cain is out there and that they're worshipping him and whatnot, when actually Morothai, who is like the high priestess of Cain, knows that Cain is dead.
Yeah.
She knows that Cain is dead, and she's actually sapping the power that they're providing for herself. That is such a fascinating tension to play with. That it's not earnest, the fact that they're playing with their own agendas. I love that. I love it. I want to see more.
It's the entirety of God is dead, worship the new God, and that is what gets me about the Daughters of Cain. I had to really bring myself back from the brink of, do I want to start another army? Not at the moment, but then again, saying that, they're not going anywhere for any time being, so that's fine. I will.
Well, they're established now.
Yeah, I will.
So they'll be around for a while.
I think I'll be doing that down the line. I've got other stuff I want to do at the moment, which I'll be talking about later on. Thanks, Crack On Games. I have an unpronounceable frog.
No.
But anyhow,
oh, brilliant. But yeah, I mean, it's something they seem to be doing, because I think they acknowledge that the elven races from the world that was, they were really one of the ones that needed the most work.
Yeah, without a doubt.
To translate and to make it interesting, because they were so boring.
Yeah.
They were just ranks of these either silver or green or white or black miniatures, and they just didn't have enough to make them interesting, to make them unique, and to make them part of this world, their own product, rather than just being Tolkien knockoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is something that is happening in a very base level. Yeah, they've started from the bottom and built up. They've taken the core concept of something and then mutated it and changed it and evolved it into something you could never imagine happening. Nobody saw the Daughters of Cain coming in the way that they came out. Nobody saw the Ideneth Deepkin coming out in the way that they're coming out.
At all. Even when they started dropping the hints, we were still sort of like, what the hell is going on?
What the hell are the Shadow Elves going to be?
Well, I mean, we get hints of it in the Daughters of Cain book. All we're told is that they like smoke. They're not physical.
Which makes me think...
They're like shadows,
the minis going to be very Wraith-like, where...
I think so. I think Mandrake.
Yeah.
Think Mandrake from the Dark Elder range, and I think that's probably what we're going to go with. Oh, sorry. The Drukhari range.
Yes, the Drukhari. Yes.
Sorry. The Drukhari range. I do apologise.
I quite like the idea of if you get like... minis which are only half on the table and then just sort of like dissipating into smoke. I think that could be a really interesting style.
I think it could be fascinating. Yeah. I think it could be absolutely fascinating. By all accounts, they're quite passive as well. They only get violent when their realms are threatened.
Yeah.
And Malarion is quite passive too.
Yeah, he seems to be quite happy just to be sitting in the dark and just doing his thing. Yeah.
The only thing that's roused him in one of the things you do get in the Daughters of Cain book, which I love, is a real description of Ulgu, of how it's organised and its districts and whatnot, the bits that Morothai controls, the bits that Malarion controls. He's still much more powerful than Morothai, and of course, because she's his mother, there's a lot of tension there. They don't get on. They don't get on at all. But what you get is descriptions of how it's arranged and how it's organised, and Malarion controls the vast majority of it. There are these weird shifting shadowlands where everything is bleak and it's very difficult to make out, and nothing is certain. Things change and shift all over the place. But I'm looking forward to what they do with them. What is it that's going to rouse him to action? What's going to make Ulgu explode out of its passivity? I mean, he's going to be enormous.
Yeah.
When they release the miniature for him, he's going to be huge.
Well, he's melded with his dragon, hasn't he? So he's going to be...
We've seen, like, a very tiny bit of artwork of him. in one of the very earliest AOS books, there is this tiny bit of artwork of him, and he looks like Malekith with his his helmet, like his Kernunos helmet, with the horns and everything. But he's got like dragon talons and dragon wings, and I'm imagining he's going to be enormous.
I think he'll probably be about the same size as Magnus.
Yeah, I think so too. Because he's one of the gods.
Yeah.
He is one of the gods. So he's going to have to stand up to Nagash. At least.
How do you do that?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, are there any other of the... Yeah, there are a couple of the actual gods you can play. Alariel, you can play, can't you? But she doesn't actually stand up to Nagash very well.
Nothing stands up to Nagash very well. Nagash is a walking tenderizer. He's what happens when you give a barbecue legs. He is...
Yeah, he's death incarnate, isn't he?
He's one of the most monstrous things I've ever seen.
I mean, eventually, they're going to do Sigmar. You do know that, right? Eventually, Sigmar's going to leave his Azurheim, and he is going to be a miniature.
Yeah, I think that's a very likely thing to happen. He has to come down. Well, at some point, there's going to be a massive campaign where Sigmar's coming down to push the forces of chaos back. Yeah,
I've no doubt. I've no doubt they're going to release Sigmar at some point.
What does it look like? That's the question.
He's going to be... My guess is he's going to look a little bit like Roboot does in 40k. And he's probably going to be of a similar size.
Yeah, you can't make him much bigger than that, because then you kind of lose the humanity, don't you?
I think this is going to be the problem for Sigmar, because he is the god of men, isn't he? So you can't make him too elaborate.
No.
He's got to have a certain humanity, because that was the whole thing about him. Obviously, back in the world that was, he was the god of men. He arose from mankind, to the point whereby when he was Vulten, he actually was a man. He was a man incarnate.
Yep.
So I think that's where they should look, actually. They should look to that miniature of Vulten that came out in the old Storm of Chaos campaign. The one on horseback.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of aesthetic they should be going for, but maybe a bit bigger. In fact, you know what? Don't make him bigger. Make him riding a star dragon.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking. Actually, give him the drake that he found. I can't remember the name of the dragon that he found.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Give him the star dragon, and that keeps his humanity, but also makes him a fittingly monstrous miniature. Then.
1 second. Right, I've picked the wrong book because that is the General's Handbook.
But this is the thing, he's got to stand up against Archaon.
Yes.
Because they are obviously equivalents to one another. Arguably even more so than Nagash and Sigmar.
Oh, sorry, I'm just grabbing a book off the shelf. There we go. Right, so he would have... The name of the dragon is... Oh, for crying out loud. I've got the Grand Alliance Order book here, and I thought that would be the one that tells me.
But the big star drake thing, the thing that's like a constellation. It's a living constellation.
Yes, but that's how I think they'd have to do it. He would have to be riding that thing, and that's.
You know what? Given the background they've set up, if they're not working on that miniature now, they're insane. Or if it hasn't been completed and has been in storage for God knows how long, which by rumor, a lot of miniature sets have.
Yeah,
they just haven't had a place to be released.
Yeah.
Fulgrim, by all accounts, that's another thing that's been floating around, by the way, ladies and gents. It wasn't particularly referenced as Adepticon specifically, but there are rumours that Fulgrim is imminent.
Yep.
One of the one that really got me excited was Lady Atia. I don't know whether you know Lady Atia.
I do, yes.
Adam.
Yeah.
She's one of those rumour mongers who clearly has some direct line to game. Somehow she knows somebody who works in the company, and she's like 99.9999999 Zeech% accurate. Every rumor she comes up with is accurate. It's like accurate to the date in terms of what comes out. She's very, very, very good. She was knocking about the Bolter and Chainsword recently on a thread where someone was talking about how they're going to cut up the big snake Morathai and turn it into a Fulgrim conversion. And she very cryptically replied, "You don't want to be doing that conversion yet."
Yeah, which I think says quite a lot, doesn't it? It's the you don't want to be doing that just right now because there's something you might be interested in. You're a little bit interested in that.
My guess is that Fulgrim and the Emperor's Children and like Slaaneshi in 40k and in AOS will be having a release quite soon. Like maybe certainly within this year, I would say, probably sooner than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we got at Adepticon is going to start rearing its head. What was mooted at Adepticon is that in early 2019 there is going to be a campaign between 3 particular forces, and one of them, surprisingly, is going to be the Black Legion. The Chaos Space Marines are going to get an overhaul, by all accounts, like a full overhaul. My guess, what they're going to do is they're going to solve the problems that we were talking about before we came on air, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems with the Chaos Space Marine range is that the miniature sets are archaic, they're ancient, some of them just don't exist anymore, they're very difficult to get a hold of. My guess is they are going to use early 2019 to re-release the Chaos Space Marine range and just give the army just a little bit of a brush off.
Yeah.
Give it a little bit of an update. And that will be with the Black Legion release.
I think you probably bang on the money there. The thing is, I don't think it'll be early 2019. I think it'll be later this year.
Do you think it'll be like around the Christmas time? Yeah.
Well, when's the best time to get an entire linchpin army out?
It's a fair point, and even if it's not released around then, we'll certainly be seeing the rumours for it around then, and the pictures of the miniatures and whatnot. But it's about time, really. I mean, the Chaos Space Marine range is one of the most neglected in all of 40k. It needs updating. I mean, we're still using Khorne Berserkers from before I was at university. We're still using like Abaddon, who was from when I was a kid.
It's 22 years old, that many years.
Yeah. And Fabius Bile as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the Fabulous Bill miniature. It's classic. But it's creaking around the edges now.
Yeah.
That big, thick coat that's not a coat. It's just a big wodge of plastic.
Mm-hmm.
The arms of the thing on his back, the Chirigen, are not surgical looking. They're too big and too heavy, They need updating, just generally. And I hope this is what they're going to do around that time.
I think that's a very strong possibility. The Chaos range, as you say, is creaking around the edges, and it's desperately needing an update. Stuff like the Khorne Berserkers, they're just looking tiny and tired. It's almost like that's where the rattlings went, That's
yeah. What bothers me though is that clearly in early 6th ed they had an idea with where they wanted to take the Chaos Space Marines aesthetically.
Yes.
Because if you look at the Dark Vengeance stuff, the Chosen, they are gorgeous. They are exactly what I want from the Chaos Space Marines. They're so far removed from their Imperial counterparts. They look like they've been in the warp for centuries, and that their style of armor has mutated and transformed and become totally removed from what the Imperials wear. That's what I want to see. They're kind of like a throwback to the old ROC miniatures, that were really warped and twisted. That's what I want. And even if you look at things like, say, Robert Gilman on his base has a dead traitor marine, right? And it's of that style. The helmet is all distorted and it's got organic bits growing out of it, eyes all over it. That's what I want personally. Yeah. From the Chaos Space Marine range, not spiky Imperial Marines.
No. Well, look what they did with the Death Guard.
Yeah,
the Death Guard.
Oh man,
they are amazing.
Yes. That's it. The Thousand Suns. If you look at like the Exalted Sorcerers, they look so far removed from what they were. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see for Chaos. I want to see them not looking like Imperials with little bits added on. Look at what style of armour they should be wearing. Which should be this archaic form of armour from back in the Horus Heresy. Yeah?
Yes, yeah.
And then make it look like it's been warped and twisted and transformed over centuries by the warp itself, by the touch of the gods. Make them hideous, make them disturbing, make them unique, make them their own thing for once.
Yeah.
You know, make them their own thing. And you know what? I think they could take it further, and I hope they do. One thing I've always wanted from Chaos Space Marines, the weaponry. I don't want the weaponry to just be Imperial stuff anymore, you know? I want it... Their bolters and their chainswords and whatnot should be different. Because they've been in the warp.
Yeah.
They've mutated, they've transformed, they've become like fleshy and demonically possessed. Give us that. Give us adaptations of some of the archaic weaponry they would have been using back in the Horus Heresy that they've maintained, but the Imperials haven't.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that,
you know,
there's talks of like Forge Worlds in the Eye of Terror.
Dark Mechanicum. So
let's get some of that in there. You know, this is... Games Workshop so far, since the rebirth, shall we say, hasn't put many foot wrong. Many feet wrong? Many feet wrong.
Not at all.
Hasn't put a foot wrong. Whatever that sentence should be.
Yes.
That I'm circling around like some kind of vulture around a corpse.
Pecking at the bone.
Just... I'll get there eventually. They haven't made much in the way of bad choices. There's been a couple of missteps. The 40k skirmish game release, that was probably one of them. The Necromunda rollout hasn't been overly popular, but Necromunda has still hit like nothing else and is doing really well for itself. So okay,
it's doing well, isn't it? Yeah,
very well. So that's good. I'm glad. What they need to do to really capitalise on this is to make stuff like the Black Legion its own thing. It can't just be black and brass. You know, it can't just be the look, they're just Chaos Space Marines, but black and brass.
No.
They need to do exactly what they've done with Nurgle, and I have complete faith that this is what they're going to do.
Me too.
Because the Death Guard was so far removed from what we've seen in the past.
Yep.
I was concerned going in when the new 40k was announced, when we started seeing the Primaris Marines, that the Space Marines were going to be the poster boys again. And they are, to a point.
To a point, yeah. But they seem to be... I mean, one of the things I do love about what Games Workshop are doing at the moment is everything else is getting equal time.
Yes.
You know, everything else is getting equal time, which I really like. I mean, you could argue that perhaps the core Chaos Space Marines, that's not necessarily true because they just got their codex and that's it.
Yeah.
They didn't really get any new miniatures despite the range being ancient. But the codex is really good. Don't get me wrong, I really like the Chaos Space Marine codex. I think it's probably the best Chaos codex for decades. Decades and decades. But now they need to capitalise on it. What they need to do with them is move them away from what they have been for the last 10 or 20 years. I want to see... You know what I want to see? I want to see core Chaos Space Marines that have different stats and different armaments to Imperial Marines.
Yeah, of course.
I want them to be their own thing. For one thing... They shouldn't be armed like Imperial Marines are armed. They shouldn't be all armed with bolters. They should be like this ragged polyglot force where each miniature is its own thing. And they're like little champions, you know, they're little individuals all vying for their own place in the warband. So, for my money, what they should really do is make the core unit closer to Chosen.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
You know, where they've got all of this scavenged equipment. Some of them are armed with lightning claws, some of them are armed with plasma guns. It unbalances them, but in a good way.
It brings the character out, doesn't it? It's the internal narrative.
Yeah, exactly. For my money, do away with the core Chaos Space Marine unit. You don't need it. Just have the Chosen as the troops' choice. And that would do it. That would do it. Because then you would have these individuals running around in the unit. They would be different enough from Imperial Marines to make them interesting, you know?
Yeah, I could see how that would work, yeah.
That's the kind of thing they need to do. That's the kind of thing they need to be looking at. Because these guys are not like Imperial Marines anymore. They're not. They've been in the warp for a long time. They've been saturated with the power of it. And also, a lot of them have been fighting for 10,000 years.
So what you really want then is a couple of Chaos Space Marines who are just having a nap. They're just a little bit sleepy and they're having a nap. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. They've had enough. Yeah. They're just old men, basically. Yeah. They do need to do that with them, though. They need to remove them from just being evil just being evil Marines.
Yeah, they can't be edgelord Marines anymore. They need to get their own feel and smell and sight. Yeah, And I think that's what's going to happen. I think when they hit properly, because at the moment it's a game of catch up. Yeah, it's building everything, putting everything in place in order to come back to it later on and really mess around and do stuff. Because that's what this 40k version is going to be. It's not, here is this version until the next version's out. This is the living, breathing version that's going to go on for years and years and years. That's just going to be updated as it goes along. Same with Age of Sigmar. Absolutely. There won't be Age of Sigmar version 2. It's going to be General's Handbook comes out each year. I'm trying to think what the 40k version's called,
isn't it? Oh, the
chapter approved. That's the one.
Yeah, chapter approved, which is imminent, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And
there's a new version of chapter approved very soon, and that will, of course, provide hints of what's coming later.
Yes, it will.
But yeah, I think what they're going to do, and this seems to be where all the rumors point, is that they've established now that you've got the Chaos Space Marines, right? You've got the Chaos Space Marine book. But I think from that, they're going to branch out. Mm-hmm. I think what you're going to get is the individual forces of Chaos.
Yes.
As their own books, as their own campaigns. So it would not at all surprise me to see the Black Legion get their own book.
I think that, I think you're bang on the money there. It's when the plateau happens, and everything has its book out, ready for the re-updates and the going back in and making things a bit more, making things a bit newer, so to speak, rather than just re-releasing stuff like the Thousand Suns Codex. It's a re-release. It's more than a new codex. They've taken the last one, because the last one's only, 18 months old, something like that?
Yeah, that's right.
So there'll be a plateau point where everything has its book, and I do mean everything.
Yeah, I think so.
There's going to be a point where it's not going to be all the main races have a codex, and then there's going to be supplemental codexes. It's going to be everything has a codex.
Yeah. I think you can look forward to seeing things in the distant future, things like Orc Cults of Speed.
Yeah.
I think you can look forward to seeing Dark Mechanicum books, Chaos Cult books, all sorts of different sub-categories and sub-species and sub-genres are going to get their own books eventually.
Yeah.
There was another thing which I think you might be dying to talk about, Adam, that came out of Adepticon that's also going to be occurring in that crusade. One of the races, one of the armies that's going to be in that campaign in early 2019.
Which one was that then, George?
Oh well, they're often described as nuns with guns.
Nuns, guns, and faith and gasoline. Yeah, because... do you ever get the feeling you're living in a fever dream, George?
Sometimes. Yeah, more recently, I have to say.
The things that you didn't expect to happen suddenly happen. There's a Rampage film coming. Bill and Ted 3 has just been announced.
Yeah, Matrix remake.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like sometimes you're living in a fever dream, and the reality of what's happening around you doesn't quite fit with how you perceive your reality to be. It's like,
or how it should be.
It's like any minute now someone's going to turn around to me and ask me if I read Sutter Kane, and tell me that their favourite colour is blue. Because Games Workshop are, unbeknown to anyone until this point, making a completely plastic Sisters of Battle army.
Well, I mean, what the hell?
The concept, the core concept of what this means confuses and scares me somewhat. Let's go from the beginning here. So, he says, getting comfortable in his seat. Let the saga begin. So, people have asked for Sisters of Battle for years and years and years. There has been one Sisters of Battle army, which was in
Second Ed. Second Ed. Okay. Yeah, it was Second Ed way back when.
Yeah, and it was all lead, and they go for a lot of money. But people have always wanted them to return. They want the Ecclesty. No, Adam.
The Ecclesiarch, that you're going for there, Adam, is that right?
That's the one. I haven't had a huge amount of sleep. I'm going to just admit that now.
Fair enough.
The Ecclesiarch, they've always been there in the background. There's been comics like Demon Fuge, which was an amazing comic.
Really good comic.
They've turned up in the books, so they've always been there. Much like a reverse Squats, where they may have vanished from the miniatures, but they've always been in the fluff.
Yep.
And then they put out this little video. And this video is actual quotes that people have said about bringing Sisters of Battle back. I don't even want to know how long that took to go through 10 years.
To research.
Yeah,
God almighty. The complaints,
plus.
the forums. Oh, the threads you'd have to follow. God.
To find all of these. Because there are hundreds of quotes in this video. It just keeps going. And then they go, hello, the Sisters of Battle are coming. And we should have realised, because back when they did that squat video, right, the Sisters of Battle actually had their own clock, right?
Yep.
And we all thought, ho, 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 what a joke. Because Fishman was on that wall as well. Fishman was on that clock. And if you go back and watch that video, the clock isn't a proper clock, because the numbers on that clock are the date in which that video came out.
Brilliance. Absolute brilliance. It just demonstrates just how far ahead they're actually thinking, doesn't it? You know, and the little naughty clues they're throwing everywhere. It's like that thing they've got at the moment about putting miniatures that haven't been released yet in photographs of White Dwarf.
The conspiracy theorist in me is going nuts. I want to go back through every single thing that's happened in the last 3 months and try and find other stuff that no one's noticed yet.
That no one's seen, no one's noticed. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It's going to drive me insane.
It's naughty, and I love it.
Naughty is the right word.
I love it. It's teasing, it's naughty, and I absolutely love it. But who would have guessed? I mean, we should have guessed. You know when they released Saint Celestine way back when? Yeah. We should have guessed.
Yeah, we should have. But
because that there is the aesthetics of the Sisters of Battle, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what they're going to be deriving her from, which I hope they do. I hope they really go for that. You know, that sort of like almost Renaissance art style thing that she's got going on. I want to see that. The sort of saintly, messianic thing with all of the ridiculous, over-elaborate stuff. Like the roses, the doves, all of that stuff. I want to see it. I want there to be like genuine, stepped out of paintings saints in this army.
If I don't see big halos of light over commanding miniatures, I'm going to be... Well, I'm not going to be disappointed, because it's the goddamn Sisters of Battle, and there is no way in hell they can disappoint me with this. I just can't get my head around... I mean, they actually released that one, was it last year or the year before, that was based on the John Blanche picture. That should have been the clue. That should have been the catalyst where we should
have understood this, but no, it didn't trigger. It didn't register for some reason. We thought that Saint Celestine and all of the, they were all just part of the polyglot Imperial Force. But no, I'm actually really interested to see where they go with this.
Yeah,
Sisters of Battle, not really my force per se.
No, I'll agree with that.
But
a modernised take on it. Yes, please.
I think they have real potential here to make these really interesting. I mean, they could go for sort of like the ascended spirituality side, the sort of Renaissance art style stuff. Or rather not or and, they could go for the really dark, down and dirty Matthew Hopkins witch hunter, Spanish Inquisition stuff. The zealotry, the self-mutilation, all of that stuff. And I hope they do go for that too.
I think what you'll see is the highs and lows. You're going to see the saintly, beatific sisters who are the nuns with guns, but they all have incredibly ornate, almost elaborately beautiful look to them. They're almost like
sepulchres, aren't they? They're like the statues of saints come to life.
Yeah, it's very angelic, our lives are saved when you see them, but then, of course, the grim, dirty shooting starts. But that's going to be counteropposed by the fact that there's going to be stuff like the flagellants. There's going to be
the fanatics,
the mud-encrusted, down in the dirt, horrible things that you look at the minis and you know that they're going to stink.
They're diseased and that they're hurt, they're wounded. You know, there's a chance to make this force really horrible, like really horrible. To have like the cherubim, for example, which have always been a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Floating around with scroll work and walking altars with all sorts of hideous offerings on them. Pain engines, obviously.
But what I'm really interested in is how is this going to fit in with Reboot's entire mentality of the Imperium?
Oh my god, that could be so much fun. They could really play with that because he's not going to like it.
No, because this is the Emperor being formed as a fanatical religion.
This is exactly what he didn't want.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Reboot was born to stop.
Yeah.
So we already know there's tension between him and Celestine. He does not like Celestine at all.
No, he does not.
You can tell that in the back of his head he's thinking, you know what, you're useful for now. You rally the troops, you know, in this state of desperation. But once it's stabilized, once it's over, you are the enemy. You are going to die.
Which leads me on to an interesting question. When we were saying before about how there's going to be a point where there's going to be every codex is going to be out, and that's going to be the point where 40k then takes its next big step forward, I think. This is all theory, obviously,
but I think it's true. I think you're right.
Is that going to be the point where we're going to see the split of the Imperium?
Well, you know what, they're building towards that, aren't they?
Of course they are.
There are cracks, genuine cracks forming now. Sometimes quite literally, if you look at what the Cicatrix Malediction's done to the Imperium. I think it's going to really start to kick off when some of the other Primarchs come back.
Yeah. And of course, the rumours are that Leman Russ isn't far.
Yes, apparently the other force that's going to take part in this campaign in early 2019 is the Space Wolves. And one of the rumour mongers, now this one is unconfirmed, and it could just be a rumour, you know. But one of the rumours is that he's going to be like Morathai in the sense that he's a pack of 2 miniatures. So my guess is there's going to be the Primarch and the Wolf.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right. That's going to be interesting.
Fascinating stuff. I want to know what their place is in the new universe.
Yeah, I am desperate to know where the Space Wolves sit.
Because they're not going to be happy about Reboot anyway.
No. Not going to be happy about Reboot. They're not going to be happy about the Citrix Maledictum. Because
the fact that Magnus the Red and the Thousand Sons are now at large in the Imperium, that's going to please them a lot, I imagine.
Well, they've popped out. The Planet of the Sorceress has popped out of the warp and is now just sitting in real space, isn't it?
Yeah, right close to Terra.
So that
Magnus even got to the moon at one point. You know? I mean, he got that close.
I threw that sorcerer before I left the moon!
He got that close to reaching Terra.
Yeah. God, I love Magnus. You know, I love Magnus to bits.
Yeah, me too. Magnus is my favourite. I really, really like Magnus. But yes, and I imagine they're going to use that to move forward the Thousand Sons narrative as well. Because it would be an obvious thing to do. Yes,
it would. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing the bigger story start to come into play. Because at the moment, we've got it's early days of the end of the 41st millennium. We are seeing how the state... It's a weird one to say. It's going to take a year... Well, it's going to take a couple of years to get the status quo set out. Which is a really strange thing to say, because normally it's the status quo is set out with the release of the box set
of the game. Yeah, essentially. I mean, that's the weird thing about this new edition, isn't it? It's the fact that it is dynamic and that it's changing whilst it's established.
Yeah,
you know?
it's such a weird experience.
I like it a lot better.
I love it to bits. But it is kind of a weird one of like, so what's happening over here with these guys? Oh, you'll find out in the next couple of months. What? What do you mean I'm going to find it? Do I not have to wait for the next edition? No? Oh, okay. Right. Brilliant.
I mean, it makes me wonder what is going to come. What are they going to do? Which Primarchs are going to turn up? I mean, I know Sanguinius is dead, obviously. Yeah. But there is still potential for something like him to come back. We've already got the Sanguinor.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like an avatar of Sanguinius anyway. it is not outside the realms of possibility that his spirit or his soul is still flitting about the warp somewhere, fighting demons or resisting chaos or something.
I wonder if we'll get something really weird, like an elevated Tycho or some
Mephiston or something like that, yeah?
Or
like a possessed Mephiston or a possessed Dante, as, possessed by the soul of Sanguinius or something like that.
That I would like. The other thing I was thinking of, maybe some kind of Dreadnought-style conduit, where the soul of Sanguinius is, it can...
It's animating like a machine or something.
Interesting. That would be something quite cool. By the way,
interesting. I mean, I think that's more likely for Ferrus Manus.
That would make a lot more sense.
I've got a funny feeling what they're going to do, because Ferrus is dead.
Yes,
his head was cut off.
Not much coming back from that.
But what they could do is something really hideous with the Iron Hands. They create like a simulacrum of him or something. Like a robotic simulacrum or something.
Oh, do you know what would be awesome? One of those, is it the... I keep wanting to call them Armitages. That's not right. Is it Armitages? Armitages? The things from Forgebane, the Knights.
Oh, the big Titan things. The Armigers.
Armigers, that's the one. Unfortunately, I'm currently rereading Neuromancer, so the only word that came out there was Armitage. So
I reread it. Yes, I reread it recently, actually.
I go back about once a year to reread it. I love that book.
Stunning book. Me too.
I was having a conversation with somebody about why is there no Neuromancer film.
Well, there is.
Well, yeah.
There is. It's called The Matrix. It's not as good as Neuromancer, obviously, but
which actually
almost all of the ideas were stolen from Neuromancer.
Almost all the ideas were stolen. Full stop.
Full stop.
I'm going to make myself unpopular. I've never liked The Matrix.
I liked it when it came out.
Yeah.
I liked it when it came out for what it did in cinematic terms. The fact it was introducing these ideas.
Yeah.
But it hasn't aged well.
No.
In any way, shape, or form. It's unwatchable now.
Do you want to know something really bad?
What's that?
I know we're digressing. I had a conversation when I came out of The Matrix where a couple of friends, and they went, "Oh my God, I've never seen anything like that." And I just went, I have. There was a big 8-part story in Sonic the Comic that was that. Sonic the Comic did it better and first.
Brilliant.
But anyhow, moving on.
Yeah.
Also, see Grant Morrison's The Invisibles and Neuromancer and Ghost in the Shell.
And Ghost in the Shell, yeah. And Neuromancer was published in the 1980s, people.
Yes, it was. Long conversation that ended up started off with why isn't there a Neuromancer film, and ended why has Netflix not made a Michael Marshall Smith Spares series, because I want to see Spares get made into a series, or Only Forward, either of them, because those books are amazing and more people need to read them. And Only Forward, when you get to the last third of that book, and I've read it about 15 times at this point, I still get the fear, the pit in my stomach, because I know what's coming. And it's not like the main character is going to die. That would have been preferable, because
absolutely
the living hell that last bit of that book gets me bad every single time, because it's awful and it involves policemen, and is this your island? And is this your island is the worst sentence I've ever heard. Grrr, that goddamn book and its metaphysics. Moving on.
Anyway,
yes, moving on. So that's basically a little bit of Adepticon then. There was other stuff, and we're not going to get too much into detail about the other stuff.
No. I think that's covered the big stuff.
That's the two really big ones that we wanted to talk about. Nuns with guns and octopus with knives. That's pretty much where we needed to be.
That's pretty much it. I think you've got an episode name there somewhere.
Grabbed by the tentacles.
That could be any episode.
That's very true, actually, yeah. So what we're going to do now is, because there is the incoming Dark Eldar Codex.
Yes!
And George just exploded.
One of my favourite armies in all of 40k. I love the Dark Elder. Love them. I didn't used to, though.
No?
That's the funny thing. No, when they were first released, I didn't like them very much.
When they were proper Saturday morning cartoon villains.
Basically, yeah. And when they were very underbaked, back in the early days of Third Ed, when they just wanted a new race to ship the box set with, and the miniatures weren't great, and they were all rather underdeveloped because they were the new race, so they didn't have as much going on. I wasn't that bothered about them. Really wasn't that bothered about them. It was when was that? It was at 5th Ed when that Phil Kelly Codex came out, when they were completely overhauled.
Give me 1 second.
It was 5th or 4th Ed when they were completely overhauled, and they went to town mythologizing them and tying everything together, describing the politics of the Dark City, making the homunculi much more significant and much more Cenobitic, much more Clive Barkerian. That's when it did it to me. You know what really did it for me? What really did it was reading the entry on the Scourges. Because way back when, the Scourges were just Dark Elder in flying suits of armour. They just had jump packs. That was it. They were kind of dull, to be honest. In the 5th Ed Dark Elder Codex, they completely rejigged that, so that the Scourges are Dark Elder that have been surgically altered by the homunculi, so their bones are hollow like birds, so their feet and their hands are claw and talon-like, and the wings that are on their backs are their wings. They're actually grafted, like, anatomically to them.
There's I've actually got the book open in front of me here. It was 2010, so that would have been 5th, wouldn't it?
5th Ed, yeah.
But there's a little bit here about the Scourges, and I really like how it comes out. It's a rich and daring Dark Elder may surrender himself to the homunculi, requesting that his bones be hollowed out by the cold metal drills of a Talos, that bands of new muscle be grafted to his torso, and powerful wings and adrenaline dispensers can be attached to his shoulders, so that he may be capable of true flight. And there's another bit later on, which is... his raw and bleeding wings carry him from the oubliettes of the homunculi to the topmost spires in which the Scourges make their home, and he must fight through deadly fatigue, warring Hellion gangs, vicious reavers, and all manner of unnatural airborne terrors to get there. The imagery for that...
It's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. I love it. It lends them so much character. You could write a story. You could write a short story about a Dark Elder, like a princeling of one of the Cabals who's bored, you know, who goes to the homunculi and has this done, and you could describe the pain and the suffering and the thrill of it. It would be so much fun. I absolutely love that imagery. Yeah. I think it's wonderful. Yeah, I also love the fact that they've got a function in the Dark City as well, beyond just being like these mutants who hang out in the upper spires. They're messengers. They're messengers. They actually carry vials of of communication between the Cabals and the homunculi, and they are apparently indispensable in that role.
The one that got me with this version of the Dark Elder, the Drukhari, was the Mandrakes.
Oh, yeah.
And it started when I was looking through this, because obviously this is one I missed out because I was out of the hobby at the time.
Yeah.
And I was looking through the books, and I saw the miniatures for the Mandrakes, and I thought, they are something else. They are spectacular.
Yeah.
And then you start reading about the history of what they are, there it is. A mandrake can pull itself into reality straight through another being's shadow, emerging with a hiss to sink its ice-cold claws and teeth into warm flesh. They are not right at all.
No, they're basically demons, aren't they? There's something, you never really find out what happened to the mandrakes. What turned them into that? There are suggestions, like there's a portion of the Dark City, one of its satellite cities, that's torn away and is wrenched into some sort of shadowy realm that's beyond the warp, and it's rumoured that is where the mandrakes come from, but you never really know. You never really know where they come from. They're not demons in the sense that they're from the warp. They're nothing to do with chaos. They're something else. They are the product of some other power or conspiracy. and they are one of the genuine mysteries of the Drukhari. Because nobody really even knows why they align with the homunculi covens and with the cabals. Nobody really knows. And it's such a removal from what they used to be. Because when they were first released, they were just Dark Elder in suits. In, like, suits that distorted their outer appearance and made them look like shadows. That's all they were. Yeah.
But it's adding that element of mystery and sort of sinister secrets to the army, which is what it seems to have become. Comora has become this, instead of just being this, dark raiding city, it became a place of obscene angles and lengthening shadows. It became
mythological. Yeah. It became slightly Lovecraftian. What they did with it, I mean, they expanded the notion of Comora in that book as well. Originally, Comora was just a port city in the Webway. And that's it. That's all it is. In the new book, Comora is an empire. It's not just one city. It's actually hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of satellite cities and ports and alternative dimensions that are bridged together. They're actually united by warp gates.
Yep.
So it's not just one place. It's lots of places and realms and states of being that are all linked together. And it was Asdrubal Vecht who did that. Originally, it was this isolated state of aristocrats, and Asdrubal overthrew them, and he was just like this scrutty little gangster. He was nobody. He was nothing. He was lowborn. You know, he's not a highborn. He was lowborn, so he's a clone. You know, he's a clone of another guy at one point. But he ascended through the ranks and eventually came to rule the entire Dark City. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it. And the one that really changed, the things that really changed were the homunculi and their creations. They became so much fleshier and so much more Clive Barkerian, so much more sort of David Cronenberg body horror than they were previously. They're my favourite element. They're my favourite element of the Dark Elder, or the Drukhari, as they are now. What really gets me about the homunculi, they rewrote them so that they are the original creators of the cults of pain that created Slaanesh. These are the most ancient Eldar in existence. They've been around since before the Fall, and they are unrepentant. They don't care that they created Slaanesh. They don't care that they ushered in the end of their race. They don't care. They're actually quite happy with their status now. They're very happy, actually. They're some of the happiest creatures in all of 40k. Because to them, the universe is just a playground.
Yeah.
It's this giant playground of flesh where nothing is of consequence. They can't die. Their souls can't be leached away to Slaanesh. They found a way of actually getting around that. When they die, when their body forms are destroyed, their souls and their sentience just wings back to their dungeon dimensions or to the oubliettes they've created, and they grow another one.
One of the things that gets me about the homunculi, and it's the fact that they do a lot of self-modification, and it's self-modification for the shits and the giggles.
For the giggles, it's the laugh of it.
The idea that sometimes they have lungs on the outside, or the heart is in their hand, purely for the effect of what that visage does to somebody.
Well, there's something real peculiarly domestic about the homunculi. Yeah, they are these extreme entities, but they've got this aesthetic sense. They believe they're really stylish.
Yes!
That they are like the heights of style and fashion in Comora. But to them, style doesn't mean clothing. It means what the states of their bodies. So they can sport a particular mutilation or atrocity that they've afflicted on themselves. And it's like they're very, very proud and preening, and they like the effect that it has on other Dark Elder and other species.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. I love them. They are these preening, self-indulgent aristocrats, essentially.
They are the princes. They are the giggling, foppish princes, but instead of being useless and
effete, they're not.
Yeah.
They're actually essential.
Yes.
The Dark City can't function without them. Because one of the things, the imagery that just completely hooked me in that codex that you've got in your hand now, it talks about how the Dark Elder replenish their warriors, right? So a Dark Elder generally don't die. When their body forms are destroyed, their souls will wing back to one of the oubliettes of the homunculi, and apparently they have these arrangements, these like honeycomb arrangements of cells where pupating clone bodies are strung.
Yeah.
And for a price, the homunculi will cultivate a clone body for a Dark Elder, and they absorb all of the pain and the suffering that's happening in the dungeon below that the homunculi is orchestrating, and they swell on that, they glut on it, and they regrow. So a Dark Elder warrior doesn't die.
No.
They just regrow again. And a Dark Elder that dies in the field of battle will be walking around again within a few months' time. It's brilliant. I love it.
The homunculi, they jump out at me because they are... I'm trying to think of a way of putting this. Eccentric given form. They are the idea that as they go and as they change their bodies more and more, and they play around with the mutability of flesh, they get a little bit... I said before foppish, and I think foppish may be the right word, where they start getting a little weird. Yeah. And I don't mean weird as in all the mutations that they do to themselves, or the mutilations they do to themselves.
But psychologically weird.
Even by the Drukhari style, the ones who will only dine on the left hands of their victims. It's the only food they'll have, or they'll only drink tears from a fluted glass.
Yeah, or they become abstracted, don't they? Yeah, they start to sample and cultivate things like not just pain, but anguish, suffering, betrayal. They can actually somehow synthesize emotion, states of mind, and make them into, say, wines, stuff that they can drink, stuff that they can, or intoxicants, so that they can experience these things vicariously. So weird.
Yeah,
it's so weird. I love it.
But
I absolutely love it.
In this book, there's they talk about how they can use things to make various elixirs. So it says here, the heart of an Abite's judge, distilled into a few drops of liquid, may yield a striking flavour of pure resolve, whilst the essence of a once proud planetary governor gives a tang of vainglory that thrills on the black-pointed tongues. This is the weird, abstract nature of the homunculi, where the very idea of what is physical and what is metaphysical combines and becomes something other.
Yeah, they're one of those races in 40k that have removed themselves so far from what they were, they become abstractions of themselves. They're even alien to the other Drukhari. I mean, they're so far removed from the other Drukhari that they may as well be another species. And they certainly regard themselves as such. They don't give a fig for the other Dark Elder, the other Drukhari. They are like children to them. They are like children. But they do like them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they actually sort of have a twisted kind of affection for them, which is why they fashion some of them into racks, so that they can learn. They can learn what it is to be an homunculus.
And I think that's one of the interesting things. In the same way that Nurgle, as we've discussed multiple times, Nurgle loves his children. The homunculi do love their creations.
Oh, they do. Yeah, they love their creations. There is actually in the latter Dark Elder Codex, the one that came out at the end of 7th Ed, there's a story in the Homunculi Coven's supplement in that about a homunculus that goes into a frothing, raging fury because I think it's a space marine scratches one of his Kronos engines. It scratches the hull of it, and this homunculus is obsessed with his children. He is like this paternalistic, father-like figure. And because this space marine just scratches the hull of the Kronos, he goes berserk. He goes into like a sort of paternal fury over it. They love their children very, very much.
In some ways, almost like a overly obsessive I will make you be better than you are now.
Yes, like an abusive parent.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so, yeah.
And that adds so many layers to what the Drukhari are. Urian himself is just a...
what is he doing?
Other than being a walking nightmare.
He's up to something.
Yes.
In the last Dark Elder Codex, his entry talked about how he has plans that have been building since the fall. And they're only just coming to fruition.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get some revelation on that in the new Dark Elder Codex, the new Drukhari Codex.
I think that's a very strong possibility.
What is he up to?
It's I do like the fact that he has an undying enthusiasm for symphonies of pain. Every single thing that he can build, if it's flesh, if it's machine, it doesn't really matter as long as it creates some kind of pain to somebody.
Yeah. He's quite happy. Mm-hmm. He's quite happy. I just love the fact that he's got himself into such a position that he is untouchable.
Yeah, yeah.
There are so many forces vying for his attention amongst the homunculi covenants, the witch cults, the cabals. No one would dare raise a hand against him in the Dark City.
No.
No one would dare. He's more powerful than Vect.
Yeah, yeah. He's got a lot.
But the only difference between them, he's not interested.
Yeah,
he doesn't give two figs for the politics of the Dark City. He finds it dull.
Well,
he just happens to be so good at what he does.
Why would you be interested in the politics? It's it's like saying, well, we've imagine, if you will, two Dark Eldar sitting, and one of them says, we have to create a form of the cult that allows us to bring forth a huge sweeping forge of people through into the webway to attack, I don't know, one of the craft worlds. Mm-hmm. And then the other hand has got, well, you do that. I'm just going to be over here hacksawing a couple of people apart and putting them back together to make a multi-legged creature that screams in a girl's voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why? Why not?
Exactly, yeah. He's just exactly that. It's why not, isn't it? You know, there's even there are links between the Drukhari and Fabius Bile, which I really like. Fabius has been taught by the Coven of 13, the homunculi covens. A lot of his fleshcraft comes from them, and they have this uneasy friendship.
Yeah,
uneasy. They have fought before, you know, but it is generally amicable. They actually see a lot of potential in Fabius.
You'd really want to be there for that poker night, wouldn't you?
Yeah, really would. Yeah. Bloody hell. You'd actually have cards that scream that are alive.
Yes, you would.
You know, it's... Good God. I mean...
Just lumps of blank flesh that scream what they are.
Ace of Spades! Yeah, just shrieks, yeah. Brilliant.
Just
absolutely
one eye
brilliant.
In the middle that's just looking around terrified.
Yeah. Wonderful stuff. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait.
No.
I cannot wait to see what they do with the new Drukhari Codex. It's going to be a blast. It's very exciting. It's a very exciting time.
It is. I think one of the elements of the Dark Elder, the Drukhari, that always interests me, and I think it's been there since the beginning, I'm not sure, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, is the idea of siphoning souls off so they don't get eaten by Slaanesh.
Yes, that has been there since the beginning.
I thought it had been, yeah.
One of the dynamics of the army is that, of course, they don't have soul stones. They don't have an infinity matrix, so they can't forestall Slaanesh's predations indefinitely like the Craftworld Elder can. In fact, they don't believe in that. One of the weirder things about the Drukhari is they hate psychic powers. There is actually a prohibition against any kind of psychic activity in Comora. An active prohibition. They hate it for some reason. So they can't use the same means that the Craft Worlders do, which means that Slaanesh can effectively drink their souls away even while they're still alive. So what happens to the Dark Elder as they age, they decay. They start to wither. And the only way they can forestall that is by inflicting pain on other creatures. They kind of supplant their own suffering for that of others, but they also drink it as well. They are essentially psychic vampires.
Yeah.
They feed on pain, and it helps them to stay young and to stay beautiful and to stay lithe. And some of the oldest homunculi, they can't survive unless they are right near a Kronos parasite engine, which acts as a kind of agony feedback loop. Otherwise, they just dissolve into dust because they're so ancient, they're so archaic. Some of the more ancient Kabbalite lords, they need like a diet of 1 million sacrificed souls a day, or they can't sustain.
God, they're amazing.
But yeah, they are. I mean, that's why they fight, really.
Yeah.
That's what they don't fight for territory. They don't fight for resources. They fight to take creatures, to inflict pain, and to take slaves. And for the homunculi to get raw materials, obviously.
It makes them more selfish than evil, which is something I quite enjoy. Yeah. As I said before, the original Dark Elder book and idea, they were very Saturday morning cartoon villain.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to do much other than we're evil.
Yeah.
We're you know those Eldar? Well, we're the Eldar, but grimdark.
Yeah, that's right. We were spiky Eldar.
Yeah. We're the edgelord version.
Yeah.
And as they've gone along, they've become much more of a self-righteous, incredibly arrogant, looking down on other races, which actually works in ladders. If you think about the homunculi at the top looking down upon their children, although fondly they still look down, and then the Dark Elder themselves look down on other races.
Everyone else, basically.
Yeah,
everyone else.
Which is something that happens with the Eldari themselves.
It's just, that's an Eldari trait, isn't it?
But this has been taken to its logical, not conclusion because it's not over, but it's been taken to a logical standing point where that arrogance has become I might as well take you in and flay all this skin off your body over the next 3 years.
Why not?
Because you're just
you're an animal.
Yeah, you're no better than a pig, you know.
You're not even an animal, you know. You are a resource, and that's it.
Yeah, that's actually a better way of putting it, because the Drukhari Beastmasters do care for their animals. Yeah, maybe not in the way that we would see caring in a human manner, but they do care for them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the more interesting things about the Drukhari, they are not as xenophobic as the craft worlders.
No.
The port city of Comora has other races in it, quite regularly, and not just slaves either. There are actually visitors to Comora. You know, they let people come to Comora. They let other races come to Comora. They know that the Dark City is its own defense. You know, if they're not worthy of surviving there, they won't.
Yeah.
They'll get picked off. They'll be prey, you know? And that's it. In fact, they're like the homunculi and whatnot. Some of the Dark Elder Lords, they delight in unleashing other species into Comora and seeing how they fare. It's how it... Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the name of the snake people were.
The Slythe.
Slythe, that's the one, yeah.
The Slythe, yeah. The Slythe are actually got quite a high position in the amongst the Dark Elder, because, of course, they're the bodyguards to the Archons.
Yeah.
So... You know, they occupy a significant place, just like the other alien species that are knocking about. And you never, ever get an alien species invited to a craft world.
No.
Not ever.
No.
Not in a million years. So that's an interesting element of them, isn't it? They are not quite as xenophobic as their craft world kin.
The coolest thing about Comora for me has got to be the fact that it keeps getting invaded as well.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, orcs have been in, they kicked it around. Demons have been in, they kicked it around.
Space Marines have been in.
The Vect, went in, gave it a bit of a kicking, and then about every Space Marine ever has just been in and kicked, give him a kicking, and then just left.
Isn't that how Asdrubal Vect took power?
Yes,
ultimately?
yeah, it is.
He allowed the Imperial Fists to invade like en masse, didn't he?
It was a
Salamanders. He gave them the means of doing it. Was it the Salamanders?
I think it was the Salamanders. Yeah.
The Salamanders, yeah. He gave them the means of actually invading, so that they would fight and kill the existing lords and unsettle the power structure. And from the ashes, he took power.
And in the new version, in the new 40k, the Death Guard kind of went in and threw some of their bits and bobs around as well.
Well, there are demons there now, aren't there? That portal, that pulsing webway portal at the heart of Comora has burst open. And now, apparently, there are demons flooding the Dark City. So what's going to happen there? I don't quite know.
It doesn't... I just like the fact that the Salamanders, the Space Wolves, Death Watch, Emperor's Children, Deathmongers, and Death Guard have all gone in, gave him a kicking, and then left. And
then left.
And the Dark Elves just seem to be like, what? Well,
yeah, there are lots of Tyranids in Comorra as well. The witch cults take them to fight in their gladiatorial arenas because they make very good sparring partners. And also the crowds love them.
Yep.
You know, the crowds absolutely love them. And the homunculi take them because they adore the Tyranids. They absolutely... In fact, there is a great story in the Homunculi Covens book where Urian Rakarth and a cabal of the homunculi, they take an entire hive fleet, right?
Mm-hmm.
They take an entire hive fleet and they secrete it away in a pocket dimension. And this pocket dimension apparently will exist. It will outlive the death of the universe. Chaos could swell and consume everything and then recede. The universe could die. Time could wind down, and this pocket dimension will still exist. And they've made it into like a garden of flesh for themselves, whereby there are endless new species evolving from these Tyranid organisms. So it is like their ultimate playground.
That is awesome.
Isn't it brilliant? They have created their own heaven. They've created their own Eden.
That I am in love with this idea.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Like
so
a
if like the Dark City,
just flesh.
Yeah. So if the Dark City does collapse, if the universe starts to run down, the homunculi can just go, okay then, and pop over to their pocket dimension, and they can sustain there happily forever and ever and ever and ever.
You know, you said before about the Clive Barkerism of the Dark Elder that kind of came to the forefront.
Cenobites in space.
Yeah, that has got to be the most Barkerisms that's ever been Barkerized.
I'd say so. Yeah. They're the Clive Barker influence, certainly in the homunculi covens, is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, even the miniatures look a little bit like Cenobites.
They do, yes.
They look fairly like Cenobites. They couldn't look more like Cenobites if one of them had pins stuck in his head.
Yeah, I've never heard that story about the Tyranids and the dimension of flesh before.
It's good, isn't it?
It is. That is
it's
absolutely
really
wonderful. I mean,
yeah, they like the Tyranids.
It's strange. They do have this like Cenobites meets Reavers feel to them, but as you've sort of opened up the doors to parts I didn't know about the Drukhari, the Reavers part of it kind of goes away, and they are much more Cenobitic. Which I know isn't a real word, but I quite like the way that came out.
It is a word.
Cenobitic.
It actually is a word, yeah, Cenobitic. Cenobites isn't a word that Clive Barker made up. Cenobite means monk-like.
Yes, yeah.
It means like priestly, attenuated, so self-denying, interestingly. So Cenobitic is definitely a word.
Yay! I can do words good.
Yeah. But you're right, they're very Cenobitic.
So yeah, there you go then. That's the Dark Elder, the Drukhari, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm actually seriously excited about these guys. And
me too.
If you went back and told sort of 21-year-old me that you'd be getting excited about the Dark Elder, or however old I was when the Dark Elder first appeared, maybe slightly younger. No, I would be slightly younger. I'd be 16, 17.
I was even younger than that. I was 13, 14.
I'm an old man.
Yeah, I was a kid when they came out.
Oh, damn Drukhari, get off my lawn. I would have left you out the building, because no, I don't like elves. I don't like Eldar. What do you mean I'm actually interested in doing an elf army for fantasy and a Dark Elder army for 40k? Well, how did that... What? Who...
How did that happen?
Who took me away and replaced me with some kind of changeling? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I wasn't that interested in them when they first came out because they were just dull.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
The miniatures were not that great. They had no real aesthetic or place for me in the game. But since that Phil Kelly Codex, the 5th Ed one, they've really taken a place in my heart. They really have. And it's just sustaining, It's another thing I really love about them, the fact that the way they never say it, but basically the incubi are the aspect warriors of Ahra, the father of scorpions. The fallen phoenix, the one that originally created the striking scorpions. They never say it, but they are.
But they're there, yeah.
They are. Those are the aspect warriors that he gave birth to after he fell to chaos. That's what the incubi are.
Oh, God, I want them. Right, moving on.
Yes.
Before I just sit here and weep into my wallet.
Oh, and also Dratzar is Ahra.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. They don't state it outright, but he pretty much is. He pretty much is Ahra reborn.
That's cool. That's very, very cool. No, I'm going to stop thinking about it. Right, moving on, because otherwise we're going to end up having another 4-hour show.
Another 3 or 4 hour episode.
So, moving on. If you guys want us to do more spotlights like this, let us know. Either on the Facebook group or on the YouTube channel, whichever way you listen to this. That'd be really, really good of you. Thank you.
Excellent.
So before we close up for the night, good grief, you can tell I'm so used to recording shows in the evening, can't you?
In the evening, yeah.
Not first thing in the morning. I'm actually surprised how awake I am now. But then again, I did bring a thermos flask full of coffee with me today. And I've just been drinking that, so I'm probably now overly caffeinated and I'll crash very soon. A couple of things I want to quickly get out of the way before we close down. Mm-hmm. One, we currently have a competition running. The competition is, if you go to iTunes and leave us a review, or anywhere else, but if it's anywhere else, please let us know where that is so we know that it exists. Your name goes into a hat. We have 5 wonderful prizes. One of those prizes is a complete set of the Citadel combat cards, which we're giving away. We also have 4 other prizes, which aren't as good. They're a little bit stupid, and I'm not going to tell you what they are because I want to see people's reactions when they get them. We're going to open this up for another month, so please just jump on. Anything that gets us more attention, iTunes reviews gets us more people finding us. Doing it anywhere else will get more people finding us. We're just looking at ways of growing this, whilst also giving you guys something dumb in return. The Patreon is now open as well. Now, the Patreon has taken a bit of work to do. Mm-hmm. This has become an interesting experiment. So, the idea originally was going to be that there was going to be seasons, but this idea is still carrying on. There's going to be seasons of shows, of satellite shows going forward. The first one that we were going to do was the Noise of War, which was going to be looking at the old 90s PC games and listening to the music, seeing what those games sounded like. People responded. People responded and said, not really a fan of that idea. Brilliant. Thank you. Everybody who said that they weren't interested, that actually means a lot. Because it means we can try something else. Rather than continue with an idea that didn't quite work. So that's fine. So
absolutely, yeah, it's better than doing it blind, isn't it?
Totally. And I have nothing but love for all the people who came forward and say, not really interested. Mm-hmm. That's thank you so much to everybody. So the idea was that the Patreon was going to have the first goal was going to be, if we hit $10, we will start a Warhammer RPG 5-episode series.
It's going to be so much fun.
So we've got that. So that'll be out next week.
Excellent.
So that starts next week. What I'm going to do is we're going to do the first one, which will be actually getting recorded tonight with Chris, who's been on a couple of times, and James and Chris, who I was doing the Creeks with, but unfortunately that's a project that's gone on the back burner. But once that one's done, I'm going to be looking out to getting other people. George, in.
Yeah, I'm totally in. I'm totally in. Just expect a really weirdy, beardy character. That's the way I play RPGs.
Oh, you have no idea the type of stories I've been writing.
I mean, whoever my character is going to be, is going to be like totally out of left field, probably completely unwieldy, and it's going to be the kind of character. I always do this in RPGs. A kind of character that. You look at the archetype and people are like, why the hell are you playing it like that? Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, I like it when people bring weird characters to the table, because
it's the nice necromancer. You know, that's what I tend to go for. Like the necromancer who's not a bastard. Mm-hmm. He's not mad. He's just sort of like maybe a gardener or something, or maybe he works in a mortuary. You know?
Yeah.
And he's kind of just like, well, it's just reusing the raw materials, aren't I? There's nothing wrong with it. Don't hurt anybody. I get them doing the gardening. I get them doing the fields and everything. They don't mind. They're dead.
concept. You completely derailed my train of thought.
Sorry.
So yes, so that's the first reward. That's now out. The first goal. So what tiers are there? There is $1 a month. $1 a month gets you the satellite shows. Bang on. If you do $3 a month, you get the satellite shows and re-edited, rescaled MP3s of all the short stories I've done. So they're coming out weekly as well. So if you're on the $3, you get a satellite show and you get an MP3 of one of the short stories I've read out. There will be a lot more short stories coming up in... Put it this way, I now have every copy of Inferno. So I'm going to be working my way through them.
Keep you going for a while.
Oh, yes. Well, thankfully, Malign Portents is coming to an end.
Thankfully, yeah. Good God.
And don't get me wrong, I've loved Malign Portents. It's been fantastic. But keeping up with those stories has been hard.
It's been a bit tricky.
I've learned a valuable lesson in this one. So I decided to take a week off and then realised I'm now 5 stories behind.
Yeah.
Good grief. Good grief. So that's the Patreon. We're trying to give you as much bang for your buck as possible because at the end of the day, we're asking you for your money, and I want to try and make it the best that we can for you.
Absolutely, as worth as yeah, definitely.
There's other ideas in the works for down the line, but they are way down the line, so we won't talk too much about them. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the last episode, the interview with Ross Whitehorn of Crack On Games. I know that the recording sound wasn't great, but yeah, that's unfortunately one of those problems. But I'm hoping that we're going to get Ross back on in the future because the stuff that he's doing, the stuff he's got planned, fascinates the hell out of me. If you guys out there know of anybody who would like to come on the show to talk about the projects that they work on, please get in contact. Get us connected in some way because I'm after as many people as I can for future episodes. I want to know people's stories. They fascinate
absolutely. Me too. I'm massively interested.
And I think with all of that, then that's us, and we can get out of here. So, as always, thank you very much, George.
My pleasure. Always good chat. Yeah. Good fun. We needed to get that out of the system. There was so much to talk about.
There was, and I think we've done all right.
I think we've done okay. I think we've been very economical.
3 weeks of shows, we've managed to get all this out. Yes!
Crammed into one.
How very Dark Elder of you.
Very Dark Elder.
How very Dark Elder. And thank you very much to everyone at home listening.
This show's like a rack, isn't it? You know, it's like stitched together from lots of bits and pieces.
Rack and ruin, yeah. You see what I did there? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you should be.
Goodbye, all. Take care.
Bye-bye.